What's going on there, jerk faces? It's your boy Andy, and you're watching Nocturnal Transmissions, brought to you by the Circle of Jerks podcast. It's a conversation you could be having during the day, but having at night. We're back with another stream. As with me, as ever, co-piloting this thing with me is the homeboy Rob.
What's going on, everybody?
Yeah, a lot of interesting things happening the last few days, or since last week. As well as continuation of our discussion discussion about the SCOTUS nominee and all that stuff, as well as the movie review. And this is the last month, or at least last week in the month of March, which to remind you, the theme was Martial Arts March. And we'll be finishing it out with a martial arts classic from the one and only Bruce Lee, and that's Fist of Fury. As well as we'll be getting it came out actually 2 years ago. I mean, believe it or not. 2 years and a couple months for us. But we'll be discussing the documentary, the 30 for 30 one from ESPN, Be Water.
A really good documentary. I know you've been like wanting to review this for a while, and I don't know. I wasn't like dragging my feet, but I was like, yeah, we'll get to that. But I didn't feel like when we were initially planning to do it that it was like the right time. And when we decided to do martial arts movies, I was like, oh, dude, we got to do the Bruce Lee documentary.
Right. And I mean, it's not as though. Yeah, I was like, I wasn't like. I wasn't ready. I wasn't like willing to die on the hill for it. But
no,
I did want to talk about it, and it wasn't like the other like docu series that we done. This one, especially this one, being more like standalone as opposed to like multiple.
Series.
Yeah, well, as opposed to a series. Although technically it is part of a series because it's part of the 30 for 30, but not like in the same way that The Last Dance was like a docu series.
Right. These are the 30 for 30 docu series are a bunch of standalone documentaries just under this like one banner.
Right.
Unlike the Last Dance, which is like 10 episodes, or like the Lost Speedways, or Tiger King, like we. God, I forgot that we did that. That was
too. Yeah, and I think at that during I think just especially in like those initial first year of COVID, we were just trying to find things to like talk about since we weren't able to go out anywhere, do anything, and all we could do was watch streaming services. So or at least a majority of people. I mean, I don't know what you guys did. I did whatever the fuck I want. But...
Oh, I did that too, essentially, until like I was like literally could not, and then now things are pretty much back to, well, I mean, outside of us living through the 70s again, everything's back to normal.
Yeah. Well, ironic too, since Fist and Fury came out in the 70s.
Yeah. Hey, we're 70s, living in a 70s like atmosphere. So hey, and I think that's the popular like clothing choice again is like the 70s.
Well, no, that was kind of like early aughts. But yeah, I think now we're definitely now back in like a 90s state of mind. Which is fascinating to me because it's like it's just more and more evidence to the theory that time isn't linear, it's just cyclical.
Yeah.
But yeah, like girls with like the halters and like the spaghetti straps and like the big oversized jeans. Yeah, dude, I'm like kind of pissed because I think well, maybe not JNCO jeans specifically, but I did like everyone of my generation, we all had like the baggy pants. And
you could sell some asshole those pants for like $200.
Yeah, and I could and you could totally market them as vintage jeans.
Oh, dude.
I know. Like I was literally, yeah, I was like, we were literally sitting on a gold mine. We just didn't know yet. We, just, we had to, we had to wait it out. We had to wait for it. We had to wait for it, and we could have, we could have sold our vintage, denim on eBay for a fortune.
Maybe like those people that like hold on to their like belongings from like their childhood, like maybe
Uh-huh.
they're onto something. It's
No,
like,
seriously, yeah, like toys. I totally wish I still had like my Megazord from when I was like 9, because I could now like I could totally sell that on eBay.
I still have mine.
Yeah,
It's
well,
not
yeah.
it's not in mint condition, but it's not in bad condition.
Well, if it's like fairly good, you're still, you could probably get like 2 bills for it. Yeah, I mean, I had the unfortunate. Well, I was unfortunate in that I had younger cousins, and so my mom just like gave it away to them, and I was like, ah. And I mean, yeah, and I was kind of at that age where I was like, I didn't really play with them, but it was still mine, and so it's like, how dare you get rid of my toys? Um,
One thing that saddens me is that I didn't get rid of them, but like I gave my Ninja Turtle toys to uh to some younger kids that like really wanted them, and I'm like, why didn't I keep them?
yeah, and what is it? Yeah, and again, like my mom, like my parents, moms are just all like, but yeah, she even like got rid of my old like Sega Genesis, and it was like I could still have played
Ooh.
that even in my into my teens. But especially because I like I think I had a Generation 2 Sega Genesis. Because my cousins did have a Generation 1 where it was like a little bit longer.
Yeah.
And it had like a few like toggle switches.
Yep.
But whereas mine was like a little bit more streamlined, and there was like 2 like start like reset, but like a start button and a power start button and a reset button.
Yeah, yours was the Mark II.
Yeah, mine was the Mark II, but yeah, and I mean even back then I wasn't too much of like a video game player, but I still enjoyed the video games I did have. I had Sonic 2, and I had the cheat code to go like Golden Sonic, which basically like in like God mode.
Yeah.
So that was fun. Um, and I had a Ninja Turtles game.
Hyperstone Heist. Yeah.
Yes, Hyperstone Heist. That's right. Oh man, God, that was so much fun.
Which I'm actually really excited because there was a PlayStation announcement just recently that they are gonna they're putting a bundle out of all the Ninja Turtle games from like the very first NES game, and then all the Turtles in Time, Manhattan Project,
Wow.
TMNT 2, and Hyperstone Heist. So like all those like great classics
Mm-hmm.
are gonna be available all in like one package. They're gonna be like the TMNT collection or whatever. So I'm kind of excited for that. Although the first one, the NES TMNT game is it's a good game, but man, what a pain in the ass that game is.
Mm.
That'd actually be a good game to do a playthrough on. Although I would need to practice before I did that because I don't want to be spending hours of like, hey, look at this. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing.
Right. uh, where it's like what is it? What's that format called? Where it's like it just kind of scrolls through this. It's like
The
scroll.
auto scroll.
Yeah, the auto scroll. It's like it's kind of like that line from Back to the Future 2, where Marty from the past goes to the future, and there's like an old style arcade game, and then like he kind of shows off in front of these kids of that area, and then you're like, you have to use your hands. That's like a baby's toy.
Yeah. It's funny because I still play like old games. Like I still play a lot of old stuff, and I'm not as good as I used to be. Maybe because I'm out of practice, or I've lost like my touch. But I still do stuff when like, people look. It's like, God damn, how are you so good at this? It's like, well, I used to play this all the fucking time. Even Dan the Man and I, friend of the podcast, we were playing Tetris this past weekend, and although I'm pretty damn good at Tetris, he is. I've never. He's so good. He's so freaking good at Tetris.
That's really interesting because I was for some reason I was thinking about my old Game Boy, and one of the games I used to play all the time was Tetris. Of course, in between times that my mom wasn't playing with it, I swear my mom played with my Game Boy. She played Tetris more than I did.
My mom was the same way. Like my mom played the NES more than me. Like it was just like she was and
yeah. Well, it wasn't all games. It was just specifically Tetris. And like she would be playing with my Game Boy more than I would be. But I mean just playing that specific game. But like it's like I had to go to my mom and be like, hey, I think you played. I was kind of like we had like a little bit of a role reversal where I had to be like, I think you've been playing that for too long. And then she'd be like, I was like, oh, come on, 5 more minutes.
Yeah. Well, actually, it's funny because I learned how to play like a lot of those games from my mom. Like, some of the games that my mom beat Dragon Warrior, or most people know it as Dragon Quest today, but Dragon Warrior was the game that like I ended up watching my mom play because I was a little too young, and there was a lot of you had to think about like what you were doing. The Legend of Zelda 2, The Adventures of Link. Those are games that like my mom beat before I did, like 20 years before I ever could. Like I sucked at those games for a long time. I was definitely better at the platformers, like it's like the Mario games. I was better than she was. But the RPGs, like my mom, because my mom was always good at those games where you had to use your mind and you had to think about what you were doing, and like all the puzzle games, like my mom was super good at those. But yeah, like those games I'm better at now. But I was playing Tetris this weekend with Dan, and because on the Nintendo Switch there's this great online game called Tetris 99. Where you're not just playing by yourself, but you're going against 98 other people online.
Oh, wow.
And but like you're trying to last the longest.
Right.
And it gets really freaking intense. Dan got to even though he only played for like a couple of hours, or maybe like about like 10 or 12 rounds, he got up to third, which I've never come even close to that.
Wow.
I got to like I think like maybe 10th was my best.
Yeah, I remember like the first generation Game Boys, we like where you could play with a friend, but you need that wire connector.
Yeah.
But yeah, playing Tetris with a friend, it's like, oh man, that was
it got intense.
It got intense because what is it like? Whatever line that you were able to make disappear, it would go over to your friend's side. So like if you got like one of those huge, if you're able to do one of those huge fat stacks, it like immediately transferred over to the to your friend, and vice versa, and they could like totally wipe you out.
Yeah. So but it's been fun playing. I don't know. To this day, Tetris is one of the most addicting games I've ever played. I play it a lot just because it's just one of those enjoyable.
Well, yeah, it's one of the most practical games. It's one of the most practical games ever developed because it's about it's a what is it? It's in a lot of ways an intelligence test because you have to deal with like space, shapes and space, but then also resource management, because you have to like a square, and you have to like make it work with like one of those like I don't even know how to describe them, the shapes. Um,
But
but what's that one that looks like a flattens like Z?
I just call them the Z pieces.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
you know,
like the
you have
Z pieces and then like the L pieces, and then yeah, and just like kind of like making them all work out. Um, yeah, it's like it really is kind of like a intelligence test.
to like to another extent too, like another game similar to Tetris that I also am addicted to is now it's more of a Sony game, is Luminous, which is more like music and color based. And so you're instead of like trying to create like rows and lines, you're trying to create like squares of the same color. And you'll have uh, it works a little bit differently, but like it's kind of like it's a similar type of puzzle game that it's so addicting, and it's so simple but hard to master. I would love to see Sony do like their own version of Tetris 99 but with like Luminous, and I think they could do something really really good with that.
Mm.
I think it'd be super popular too.
I mean, yeah, I'm not familiar with it, but I'll take your word for it.
I would say, like, as much as I love Tetris, Luminous is fun because the music in that game is great,
Mm.
and you're trying to create as many combos as possible, like
Mm.
before, because you'll have like this scrolling line, and like I said, you're trying to create a square of the same colors, and you're trying to create this combo, like where you're trying to create as many of those squares before like the line like clears them. And you'll get some like where some rounds, depending on like the music, like where like the all the pieces will keep falling like super fast, but the
Mm.
line will go like, like a glacial pace, and it's like you're really like you can get in trouble really easily if you're not paying attention.
Mm.
Or you'll get, like the ones like where like the pieces go really slow, but the line keeps like zooming past, and then you'll get
Mm.
like the ones like where everything's like equally paced. But uh yeah, and it's after like a certain amount of combos, like the music and the pieces will change, and yeah, it's really fun. It's a cool game.
Mm. Cool. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that little bit of nostalgia.
I wasn't
Um,
expecting the 90s, but yeah,
yeah. But all right. Yeah. Let's get into let's get into the topics today. Let's just start off with the continuation of the discussion of the SCOTUS pick from last week.
Yeah, well, the thing is, like, the more that I've been listening to about, some like, from that, the the uh, Senate hearings and stuff, kind of like, asking her questions and trying to, question her. Look, to be honest, like, one thing, we're not getting like the Brett Kavanaugh, like, are you in a rape gang? Did you how much beer did you drink, while you were in high school? Like, who of the making shit up type of questions, like
Mm.
eh, what the questions are, at least from people who we would say are on our side of the aisle. They're legitimate questions of like, you're okay, let's talk about these cases that you've done, and let's try to figure out like what is what are you going to do as a as if you were a Supreme Court justice. Like, let's figure out like what your judicial um philosophy is, like, which is actually important. Let's look at your cases, let's look at your your speeches, your philosophy. And to be honest, like, normally, like, obviously, like, someone like Biden, we get a liberal guy, so they're gonna pick somebody that's more on their side of the aisle. And initially, I was like, it's not gonna matter, it's not a big deal, whatever. It's not gonna really change the balance. But when we were talking about this last week, and like kind of leading up to last week, and like as stuff has progressed, during the week before today, we can't have this person. I know she's gonna get picked. I already know that. It's just
she's gonna pass through,
I
regardless of
understand.
our feelings.
But here's the problem. Like, already, just based off of her weakness, I wouldn't say weakness. This is a very calculated tactic. She is soft on pedophiles. I mean, it's clear. I mean, all of the cases that they've talked about is like, you're you're not only were like the people that were defending, but the people that are prosecuting, like, they had similar, like, hey, this person deserves like this amount of time. It's just it. The law states this. The prosecution was wanting this, and even the defense didn't really have like a good defense. It's like kind of like, yeah, I kind of did it. That was kind of the defense against these pedophiles, that she was the judge for these cases. And instead of giving that, like, what what the law allowed based off the evidence that was given, it's like, oh well, you had these, so and so, like, I think like there was this one case where, like, I think it was they were gonna give the guy like 4 years, and or something close to that, and it's like, 3 months, 3 months. 3 months.
Right. Well, I mean, here, like, yeah, to that point, I think like she automatically disqualified herself, in my opinion. When like, well, no, in her opening like remarks, she said like, oh, I'm a judge. I'm here to, interpret law. Not to add anything, but just take what the law says and apply it,
Well, she's
as evenly as possible. But then she goes and, again, like, kind of, to what the example that you cited, she then said like, oh well, we have to take in, this law was made like so long ago. It was made. The law was made under the time when, getting child pornography was harder, and so like now it's like it's so easy to get that we have to reinterpret, or it's my job to then make up for the shortfalls of the law. And it's like, so she immediately contradicted herself. And so in my opinion, she therefore has disqualified herself from from the position of a Supreme Court.
Which is why the law should be harsher against this stuff. Not only for the people,
right?
Like,
yeah, because she was like, she made this ridiculous, or not even non-point of saying like, oh, in 15 minutes you could just you could be clicking around, and then you can get like this huge cachet of child pornography, and just like, what?
like, oh, like, well, let's look up this recipe for apple pie. Oh shit, child pornography. It's like, no, it's not. It does
Right, and
not
it's just
work.
like, and it's like the amount of time is somehow like what's the word I'm looking for? I was just thinking about it. The time has no significance on like the crime. Like, like it's like, oh, in 15 minutes. It's like, well, in 15 minutes, how many people could you kill?
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like the amount of time like one does like in committing a crime. It's a straw man. It lends no, like, a crime is a crime, no matter if it takes you 2 minutes to like hack someone's like personal accounts, or 2 minutes, and you're able to kill like 5-10 people.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. That's the thing. And we already kind of touched on that last week, but here's the thing. Because, yeah, we have some of, like, people that are supposedly on our side of the aisle that are, raising these questions about, kind of, challenging her on things. But I want people to pay attention, to me, like, having someone like that is already soft on like pedophilia, you're out. Like I would, that's already a no vote for me. So I want people to pay because she's gonna get in. It's gonna happen. I
Right.
already
I mean,
know.
yeah, and just to remind people, what is it like the hero from last, from just 4 months ago, Joe Manchin, who stopped the Build Back Better and all that stuff. Went on record and saying like, yeah, I'm gonna vote to confirm this woman.
Bingo, exactly. So I want you to pay attention to the people that are giving a yes vote to this. Whether and especially on the conservative side, if you're a conservative, on the conservative side of the aisle, because those are people that you should never vote for ever again. Because they're pretty much saying that like, that they're okay with pedophiles, essentially. I mean,
Yeah,
like,
or they're signaling that they're cowards because they don't
that
want to be called what is it, or be called racist, by not confirming this woman. Again, like the stupidest of stupidest senators in the world. You may know where I'm going with this, but Mazie Hirono, she was saying how she made it like the statement, the most moronic of statements of all moronic statements,
stupid
where she was the lambasting like the Republican senators, saying like, oh, it's racist for people to say that you got that you're only selected for your race, or they're sexist because they think that or they say that you're only selected for your sex, and then goes on to affirm that that her sex and her race are important for why she was selected. It's just like, are you freaking kidding me?
I mean, Mazie Hirono is in a run and gun battle with Cory Booker for dumbest senator.
Oh yeah, God, yeah, and it's so funny because what was it? I forgot what the word is, but there's this pastor that I follow, and he does like a podcast, but there's a specific word, and it's a word that enables you to know if someone's on your side. I forget, maybe I think you might know, but it's some like special word like in Hebrew, where if
Oh,
like someone uses it.
I do, and I'm drawing a blank on it right now. Oh shit, I know that word.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but when Cory Booker invokes the name of God, you know that it's the bullshit.
I mean, when he invocated the name of Spartacus, I knew he was full of shit.
Well, yeah, but I mean, yeah, it's just like when he uses certain words, like he's not using them properly, and it's just like, yeah, like the whole Spartacus thing, and then what was it? Like what his like kind of like corn pop, like T-Bone, yeah, like his made up like badass friend T-Bone, um,
Oh, T-Bone. That
right? But
person.
yeah, like even like this saying like it's like you know invoking the name of God. It's like, sister, you got here, because the Lord is with you. And it's like it rings hollow, Cory Booker. Just stop it. You're making an ass out of yourself.
T-Bone exists just like his heterosexuality.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and and Rosario Dawson is totally not his beard girlfriend.
Oh.
God.
But yeah, but I want you to pay attention to, like, especially on the conservative side of the aisle, because I already know like where the Democrats line up for the most part.
Of course.
But look at like guys like Ted Cruz. Where do they vote? And then like what was I forget like the other two that like had like their kind of like the kind of big challenge moments against her. Like I forgot who the
Oh
lady who
yeah.
do you
Blackburn.
Blackburn and what's the other dude?
Yeah. Oh, Holly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's
What?
like crazy. And Holly's is really kind of special because he gave her forewarning on like what he was gonna ask her. So he put it on Twitter. It's like, this is the case that I'm gonna question you about. And I think he was he wasn't, he said that in good faith, and he was like saying like, this is the case that I'm gonna ask you about, you know, I really want to know. I really want to hear your answer. I really want to know like your thought process, and you know, and so on and so forth. And when the day came and he said, "This is the you know, here's the case I want to talk about," it's like I actually don't remember the details of that case. Like I gave you all, you know, I gave you forewarning. You had all this time to prepare yourself and still didn't do the homework.
Yeah. Oh, and like I said, and she sounded like an idiot during the whole thing. That's clear. But what I'm saying is that those three specifically, watch where they vote when it comes time to like
Oh
say
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yay or
Yeah,
nay.
yeah. But I mean, because yeah, even Lindsey Graham. But I mean, we all, you know, Lindsey Graham's a piece of shit.
Oh, he's the biggest wimp of all of them.
Yeah.
And he came out, yeah, he said he talked a big game like he always does, but when it comes time to actually do something of significance, the guy folds like a card table. It just so the guy sucks.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I'm with you. You know, yeah, keep your eyes, keep your eyes open, folks.
Like I
Um,
said, there are times where like Ted Cruz is one of those weird guys like where there's a lot of times where like he does stand up for like the right things and actually does. I do think that in his personal life, I think the guy's a good person, but the guy he says a lot of things and then doesn't seem to always follow through. And I don't know if that's necessarily because of like he just doesn't have the numbers behind him and it just doesn't get done, or if like he just like ends up folding or makes concessions in another way. But that guy, like, I'm just it bugs me. Like, so that's what I'm saying. Just and if this is like one of those things, like if you're gonna go hard on this somebody on her judicial record, especially when it comes to pedophiles, which is already like if you're soft on those guys, no, you're no. I don't want you in the court. I don't want you in the Supreme Court. And if like they make this big stand, this big bugaboo about all this, but then they're like, yeah, okay, then that's what, I don't want to vote for those people anymore. Those people need to be out of office.
yeah, absolutely. Um, because definitely these politicians are taking their constituents for granted, and after 2016, I think if like they don't wise up and like they don't like they don't put their money where their mouth is, then they'll get primaried for sure.
And I really hope that's the case. Like I just stuff like this just
Right. And I mean, yeah, and like there's some who'll be like, oh well, you don't want to split the party, it's better to uh you know what is it, just get one of our guys in. It's like, well, like he may not, or they might not be one of your guys.
exactly, that's the thing where
And
people,
so like at that point you should be like, yeah, let's split the party, I don't care.
this is where this is what concerns me and what people don't realize too. This goes back to the initial agenda of like George Soros and like the Justice Democrats. They were saying like we're gonna fund certain Republican candidates too that are they're gonna run in that aisle and kind of do their thing, but they when those key moments come, they're gonna vote on our side of things.
Right, exactly.
And I don't know if that's essentially like what has happened, but God, doesn't it feel like that? Like where even though we have like quote unquote our guys, it they always seem to fold when the time when
Right,
a
yeah, no, there was this one Republican, I forget who it is, but I think it was like through Project Veritas or something, or no, I heard on Tim Pool's podcast where he was like talking to this Republican senator or congressman, and he was like, like he was supposedly like, this MAGA guy, and he's like, oh yeah, America first and da da, but behind the scenes, like, no, I'm not like that. Like just like
Yeah,
handedly, just admit it. Like, no, I'm not that.
exactly. It's just like, what? Yeah, and there's been a lot of those guys where I'm like, oh, you kind of, they have these moments and like they seem like they're the good guys, but they're, when certain things happen, they show their colors. It's like, okay, that's not the guy that I thought I voted for or that I thought was the guy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Damn.
Exactly.
So I just
Yeah.
want, it's, we already kind of know where I'm not going to say her third name. Fuck that. Her name is Ketanji Jackson. That's her name. Uh, or and we already know where she's at. Like she's a
Ketanji Brown Johnson.
race theorist, uh, soft on pedophilia type of judge. That's where she's at. She's gonna be soft on crime. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if there's some sort of connection to like some sort of Soros fund or money with her. I wouldn't be surprised.
Well, yeah.
Um,
What is it? And yeah, and she's all for CRT. Like she's like on the board of some like school district or private school, and like she voted in favor for having CRT in the curriculum.
yeah,
So yeah, I mean this person is dangerous, and she cannot be allowed to sit on the highest. Okay, this and you know, initially, I was kind of in that boat too, where it's like, oh, she's just replacing Roberts, like, she'll, and obviously Joe Biden's gonna, uh, put, nominate a progressive or whatever, yada yada yada. It's not gonna change the makeup of the court. But it's like, no, this woman is dangerous, right? And this is a lifetime appointment, and she's young, and she's on the young end. I mean, I think she'll be like the youngest I think she'll be like the youngest justice, and like she might have like another like 50 years. Uh, I mean, I don't know how old she is now, but like let's just say on the outside she has like 40 years, 40 years on the court.
yeah, she'll be around for 100,000 years.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing. Yeah, right now, the kind of the plan to just stuff the court with more people like her has been stymied. Great, but it's coming. It's gonna happen.
Mm-hmm.
More of these sickos are gonna become part of the thing, and we are gonna live in like the Dark Knight Returns level of type of world. That's what we're gonna end up living in.
Right? Yeah, like I give it to you, the
The
people,
people.
the people. Um,
that that's what these people want.
Exactly. Yeah, and people like I'm sure like a lot like I know it wasn't like well received as The Dark Knight, but like people I really hope people understand like that was like an allegory for socialism.
Yeah, and
Like
well,
or at least the Bane part, like the whole idea. It's like, oh yeah, people's revolution. Oh, like take back what's yours. Look at all these fat cats living off the labor of your of your back, the sweat of your brow. It's really yours.
yeah. Oh, no, it's a great movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I go back to that. It's like, oh my god, this is exactly what's gonna happen.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, and I mean, like, just like to the like even to like the point where they're like letting out prisoners with like guns. That's happening right now.
Yeah, we're at that point. It's crazy.
Hmm. Yeah, and then like, and if you're not like in front of the train, like pushing against it, then then you're kind of part of the problem.
Yeah,
Um, and of course, like I have my own example of not paying attention or not doing my due diligence, even though I literally did my best. I scoured the internet, I typed in the guy's name, couldn't find shit, and I went beyond the first page, people. I
yeah,
went I went beyond the second page, and I was
yeah.
able to find anything.
That's in those instances, because maybe I'm like, you know what? in those when I can't find any information on the other, the candidates running against the incumbent, I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna stick with the devil I know
Right.
because
Yeah. I
the
mean, that's a good rule to have.
information scares me more than the information I do know.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, that's just a good rule of thumb. You know, I mean, people might be like, it's like, oh, well, you know, it's still the devil. It's like, yeah, but you know what this, you know like the current devil you have, you know what they're capable of. You know, like, you know, you know, uh, at least have a history with you. You know, there's other devil that you know nothing about. There's eerily no information about them that's readily accessible. Then they're the people that you have to be afraid of.
Yeah, and the information that like came out after he got voted in, it's like, oh shit. Then like you start to
Yeah, and it was crazy because like it's not as though like I completely shun TV. You know, I watch TV every once like kind of like the mainstream broadcast TV, and it wasn't until I flipped on like my local news and there was an ad for this George Gascon, and it's like, oh yeah, George Gascon, Democrat. Oh, it's like what is it, endorsed by Gavin Newsom. Oh shit, endorsed by all like these left leaning like organizations. Like fuck.
yeah, it's just like, oh, god damn it. And
Yeah,
now
yeah, and it's like stupidly again, and again stupidly I vote by mail. And that there's problems with that now too. I mean, there probably always have been, but now they're just more obvious.
yeah.
But yeah, like now, like I'll only vote in person. I'll only vote for people that I know, even if like they're shit. But like if I know that they're shit and I don't know about the other guy, then I'm going with the shit that I know.
Yeah, we'll have to like probably like, we should go together the next time we when the elections come up. What I think in
Well, I
November.
mean, well, we can't vote at the same place because we live in different areas.
True.
But I mean, well, at least we could go through like the what is it, like the candidates and
We should do
the
that.
proposals together.
Yeah, yeah. But then no, what was I? Because right now, like the one of the big races here is at least the like locally. I don't know if you've been seeing like a shit ton of commercials for a guy named Rick Caruso.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know, man. I don't know if that's the guy. It's just like there's
Right.
a
Well, cause there are a bunch of people I follow on social media that I relatively trust. Or I feel that are relatively honest. And there was this one account, I forget which one it was, but I don't know if they ambushed Rick Russo, but supposedly there was like some sort of, or like um, there's a complication between him and George Gascon,
oh really?
like some sort of like prior relationship.
That one. See, here's the thing. Here's the key word that kind of like something's off here, where like the idea of because he's what his big talking point for his like at least for his like ad campaigns is about like the homeless crisis.
Mm-hmm.
Great, like we need to deal with that. That's good. But he's like, I'm gonna use the emergency clause, or this is gonna be a national or a state emergency. It's like, no, no, we don't need more emergencies. We don't
Right.
need to it's like we don't need more emergency powers. In fact, we should take most of those away.
Exactly. Yes. I mean, yeah, because what is it? The other guy that I've been looking at, Joe Busciano or Busquino. He looks pretty fair. I think I'm leaning more towards him. And yes, he's a Democrat or whatever, but he was one.
Oh, candidate.
Yeah, both candidates. Yeah, but although really quickly, what is it? The Rick guy, Rick Caruso. Like, there is another account that or at least someone that I relatively trust, who says that they are looking at him like favorably. But again, need to do more research on Rick Caruso. But Joe Busciano or Buschino, like he's actually been making like really impressive moves. Like he went and visited the like homeless encampment in what was it, Centennial Park in Venice, and and like on the challenge of of this account that I follow on Instagram, Gutter People of Los Angeles. Yeah,
Yeah.
that account called him out saying like, oh, if you're really about like solving the homeless issue and stuff, like I challenge you to go and walk. And then this other woman who lives in the neighborhood who actually did an interview with this channel that I follow called California Insider on YouTube. And she was talking about like the homelessness problem, and like because she's also a teacher and she also lives in the area, and like having like her students having to like being yelled at by like these homeless people with like mental problems and drug addictions, and um, and like not coming in like through her front door because when like her and her neighbors come home with like groceries, like they kind of feel guilty and feel like they have to get more stuff so they can like give it out to homeless people, and just kind of putting this unnecessary burden on everyday people.
Yeah. Well,
But that Joe guy, he's like he's really impressing me, and we might have a connection. We'll talk about it at the end of this, when we get off,
yeah.
yeah. But back to what you were saying, like we've lived under 2 years of emergency, right? We're sick of that. That's the last thing we want to hear. You know, and I think as much as I'm for the issue on homelessness and trying to find like actual solutions, like if a candidate came out and said like that uh, like he was gonna, well, particularly about the medical stuff, like, and come out and say like I'm going to limit the executive power. Now I'm going to limit the executive, like the power of the council on making laws or mandates about personal health issues. Then yeah, I would totally be all for that.
Yeah.
And I would think, and that would really set them apart because all of the candidates, like without pretty much without exception, are all talking about homelessness.
Well, I mean, because honestly, like for California, that's I would say that's probably the number one issue.
Right, but yeah, of course.
Because
but I think if any mayoral candidate right now wants to separate themselves, they'll say that they'll also say that that they are going to limit uh, the power of like of the state, quote unquote, because it's a city, but the power of the state to make to implement mandates and limit the council for making laws about personal health.
Yeah.
And that issue alone will get independence.
Yeah, I'll be 100% behind that person.
Yeah. But
because I want to limit the power that the government has.
Exactly. I mean, again, to reiterate, we've been living under 2 years of emergency.
We have a constitution, federally and state, where we do have powers that we can use to create laws, but the legislative branch in both cases have essentially abdicated their role.
So, exactly, or like at least in certain situations, because like here in LA, like the city council, like they were, they didn't shirk their responsibilities when they voted in for vax passports.
Oh yeah, that was.
So they made it a law that it's like, oh yeah, everyone has to carry papers now, like fucking Nazi Germany.
bullshit, absolute bullshit.
Exactly, and also
But
very deceptively, because if the record is true, because I did look this up, 2 people didn't vote or weren't even invited to the vote for the Vax Pass, and that's Joe and that's Joe Buskino and my representative on the council,
John Lee.
Yeah, John Lee. Both of them were not, like, they weren't even in the building when that vote took place.
I wonder why.
Yeah, especially because John Lee and Joe Buskino, they're like
coffee. Wait, you guys, can you guys go get us some coffee? We'll totally not hold.
Yeah, we'll totally wait for you guys. It's like as soon as the door closes,
fucking
it's like all in favor say aye. It's like all opposed. But I mean, I guess kind of getting back to the original topic of this Jumanji Brown Johnson, a mayoral candidate is different from a Supreme Court nominee because again the Supreme Court nominee is for life. Unless that person decides to step down or unless that person keels over in the chair, that person will be affecting law or the interpretation of the law for years, generations even to come.
See, like in the case of a guy like like an Alito or a Thomas, people who have done a lot of good work in that case, in that seat, awesome. But there's so many people that have fucked that up beyond belief, where it's like, you know what? I don't think that should be a lifetime appointment. They shouldn't have like this Pope-esque appointment where you just stay in that seat till you're dead.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah, I mean, kind of like similarly how Rand Paul is trying to break up the power that Fauci has. Maybe we ought to consider judicial appointments with term limits as well.
I'm all for that. I want to look more into I want to first look into like why that particular part of government, the judicial branch, why did the founders set it up like that? Before I make my decision, like before I kind of like start ranting and raving about term limits on everything, and because I yes, as I am right now, I'm 100% being like fuck all that, because that ends all the stupid bullshit behind the Supreme Court nominees. But I want to figure out like what was the thinking behind it before I start ranting and raving about that.
Right. Well, I mean, again, it could be just the time that they were in. And whether you want to call it a blind spot or not, they never thought that that the court could would be or could be politicized to the extent that it has been.
I don't think anybody could have perceived that, or like I don't think that they perceived the fact that like the legislature would say like, we're
totally abdicating their responsibilities. Yeah,
the laziness. I don't think that they assumed that everyone was trying to grab power, so they blocked everybody from like being able to do that. They never imagined people just being like, well, fuck, I don't want to do anything. You do it.
Right. Yeah, and I think as much as we can, we should try and get back to that original vision for this country that the founders, set up, because just because like everyone because some of them might say like, oh well, only property owners were allowed to vote. It's like, well, was there anything that's set up in the Constitution that prevented people from attaining property? Like no,
No.
it's like no. There's nothing. So they're saying like yeah, come and have a seat, but you have to and if you want to interpret it like the most unfavorable way of putting it, it's like, well, if you can buy your seat at the table, then you're welcome to it. But it's just like it's also a challenge, it's like yes, make your paper, get your land, and come join us at the table. That's a challenge. That's not a taunt. That's like saying, yeah, do the work, make your money, and come join us at this table.
You have the opportunity. You're not being blocked. You're not being stopped. You're more than able to be able to do that.
Exactly.
And once that happens, you're able to when they say like, oh, there's we shouldn't have just the elite making decisions, like, but they're not stopping you from being an elite person yourself.
Exactly. Yeah, they're not. Yeah, they like.
Here's the thing too. What people don't realize is that there's a very real possibility that the people that are there can lose their land too from bad decisions or whatever. It's possible that they lose their land and then they lose their ability to vote too.
Right. I mean, yeah, like think about like a rancher who has like 1,000 head of cattle, and then all of a sudden his like 30% of his cows die from like a disease or whatever, then he's fucked. And that's profit that he's losing, and like he might actually lose like his land, or he might lose his house, or he might lose, on and on and on. But that's the risk that he takes.
It's it's very
it's well, like really quickly, it's like the idea of like it's like the principle. It's like if you don't put in for the pizza, you don't have a say in the toppings.
And you know what? That takes me out of the running for voting, and I'm fine with that. I want to limit the vote as much as possible. I don't think you see all these kind of like man on the street stuff. You know what scares the shit out of me? All those people can vote.
That's right. I forget. I don't know who it was, but yeah, there's someone who he did that. He did kind of like that, like Jay Leno jaywalking kind of thing, and it was like just asking kind of like, basic knowledge questions, and like one of the funniest and the scariest one that he asked is like, if you drive at 60 miles an hour for an hour, how far did you get? And everyone's like, a mile.
Those people can vote, Andy.
I know. That's what's funny, but also very terrifying, because those people can vote. Those people.
Those are the people that listen to Brian Stelter on CNN. It's like, oh, the Marshmallow Man is like telling me this.
Yeah, or they actually believe, Occasional Cortex, with their creepy, fucking, Instagram story talking about capitalism, but like not even knowing what the fuck she's talking about.
Or about how she's never seen a garbage disposal in her life, even though she lived in like one of the rich, swankiest parts of New York.
Yeah, state. Just to be clear, like New York State, not New York City. Even though she eventually relocated.
Yeah.
To be AOC, from the block or whatever bullshit.
No, she lived in Westchester, which is a very fancy part of New York.
Yeah, and like the way, and it's so disrespectful to her father, the way that when she early on she would say like, oh, like yeah, I was raised by a single mother. It's like, yeah, after her husband died.
Dick.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's so disrespectful to her father. It's crazy.
But here's the thing: she doesn't care because
I know she doesn't care. But it's like, but there's like fucking idiots who listen to her and like it's like, oh yeah, like she has all the answers. Like,
no,
like bitch, like motherfucker. 4 years ago, she was making whiskey sours.
And I'm not saying that a bartender can't make a good politician that makes sense. That's not what I'm saying. But
neither am I. But she's a moron.
But once again, we go back to another YouTube channel that called it right from the beginning. Mr. Reagan called it right from the beginning, saying that like she is not a real politician. She was hired by these guys to play this part, and they are the ones that are dictating what she says, what she does. Who knows? Maybe she is uh maybe she didn't believe that stuff before, and she definitely doesn't believe it now, but like, she's being paid to say these things.
Right. I mean, even in like that documentary thing about her, she said like, yeah, I auditioned. Like what politician auditions for the role of like representative or senator or whatever.
And that should scare you, because that is happening on in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why you got to pay. And now, like, once I saw that, and once I started like learning more about what that group does, it's like, oh, I need to really start paying attention, not only to like my own, to these Democrat politicians, but I got to start paying attention to people who even are on our side of the aisle, because man, it can get real ugly real fast if you're just like, oh, I'm just gonna vote R. No, don't do that either.
Right.
I mean, it's probably not gonna happen, but occasionally there might be one that's like, who is a Democrat who isn't a complete shill, and despite having a D in their name, is actually an actual someone who gives a shit about the country, and is gonna try to do what's
Yeah.
best.
Or like, yeah, don't even like, yeah, again, like, don't even think about like the national stuff. Like, think locally too. Because I mean, look at our situation.
Yeah,
Here in LA County, like, all like basically all of the candidates are gonna be Democrats. But like,
yeah,
which Democrats actually have good ideas or have like really or have like solid like position on issues?
yeah, exactly.
You know.
It's and to be honest, if you have an R by your name in this state, you're probably not gonna be on the ballot. It's just not gonna happen.
Right. Again, because of how like they rigged the system, so like now it's like a jungle. What is it? Jungle primary, where it's like
Uh,
they don't even send like one Democrat, one Republican anymore. It's just like whoever gets the most votes, and then whoever secondly who gets the most votes.
yeah.
And so like like yeah, there was a time, or just like the last election, it was pretty much nothing but Democrats. I mean, except for like the recall election where everyone who qualified with enough signatures or whatever was able to get on, and like yeah, you had like some Republicans or whatever, but
They
but
were on page.
yeah, exactly. And like, what did it matter? Because they didn't even wait for all the votes to come in, and they just announced that Gavin Newsom was the winner.
Yeah.
Like
No,
I mean, yeah, they called it like at with like what was it like something like 18% of precincts like reporting in.
Andy, you conspiracy theorist. It was a perfectly legitimate recall election. Everything went smoothly and perfectly, just like it was supposed to. I don't know what you're talking about. Gavin Newsom was super popular, and he reclaimed kept his throne.
Yeah, Patrick. Yeah, that Patrick Bateman reject. Yeah, I mean, yeah, if you believe that, I got a beach in Malibu. I got it. I want to sell you.
uh it was just, oh my god.
I know. Seriously, it's just like. I mean, obviously there's some fuckery going on, but like if you honestly and seriously voted for Gavin Newsom, then you're a fucking retard, and like I'm gonna talk to you as such. I'm gonna like talk like this and use big hand gestures
Well,
and
and
talk with a staccato like this so you understand me.
that's what I've been telling people for a while now. It's like, okay, you don't like the gas prices, right? Yeah, the gas prices suck. Well, guess what? That's our federal government, all the Democrats, that Joe Biden and all of his cohorts, that's what they did. It's not about Russia. It's not about no. It's these people that you voted in. These are their policies and the result of their policies. Same with like, oh, you're happy that like the mask mandates are ended. All right. Well, you know why that's happening is because we have an election. Everyone knows it's unpopular. Everyone hates it. You hate it, right? And so you have them loosening now because guess what? We have an election coming up. So don't reward these people by voting them in again. You know, obviously we don't have another presidential election for another 3 years, 2 years, but it's
Two
just
and
like,
change.
yeah, but don't reward these people by voting in the same dumbasses that are going to create the same policies, and as soon as you vote them back in, all the things that you hate are coming right back. I guarantee it. There's going to be another variant where we need to have the fucking mask again or whatever. Stop it. Don't do it. Don't vote for these people. Do something different. Look at if it means that you don't vote, don't vote. If it means that like you actually look at what the fuck you're doing, vote for that, and then you like, oh, this person's actually stands for something that I believe in. You know what? Vote for that guy. Yeah, and stop voting for the Gavin Newsoms and the Eric Garcettis and the bullshit politician Democrat crazy people that have been doing the same dumb shit
Yeah, or
for
the needle dick Republicans.
yeah, and I'm not even saying like just vote Republican, just
No, but
at least
yeah, just like yeah, like the Republicans who'd rather lose with dignity. Fuck those
yeah,
guys too.
those guys. I hate those people too. Honestly, I'd rather vote for someone like like a Tulsi Gabbard type than like vote for those people.
Yeah, no, exactly. Because like yeah, I mean it's so crazy how Tulsi Gabbard like just think about to yourself like how weird it is that she didn't get the nomination. She checks all the boxes. She's a woman. She's vaguely minority. I don't know what her
She
ethnic
does, she doesn't like play it up, but yeah,
yeah, I don't know what her like ethnic composition is, but like she's
she's
vaguely minority. Um,
Warren.
yeah, and she's likable. She would have told if she ran against Trump, like if it wasn't gonna be close, she could win.
Oh yeah, absolutely, she could have won.
Yeah, but I mean, it would have been like a much closer contest than like the
Guess
bullshit
what?
that we got with fucking that fucking spike in the middle of the night.
And guess what? She's not an insufferable bitch either.
That too. I mean, think about Kamala Harris. Like, she ticks all the boxes too, but she's wholly unlikable. Like,
No,
she wasn't even to get like a percent from her own fucking state,
here's the thing.
California.
Yeah, here's the thing. Everyone hates Joe Biden. Yeah, I mean, like I think his approval rating is like it's going down to like almost 20% now, or it's like it's almost at the 20s. Kamala Harris is worse.
Yeah.
Where to the point where like when she has like her speeches with like people around her, like that space speech or whatever, those were
Or
all
what about the significance of the passage of time?
oh god. Political speeches that have just really rallied us. We're gonna keep doing the things that we keep doing, and
Like she was trying so hard to sound profound. It's a little bit sad. It's a little bit sad, but
these are
still
well,
hilarious.
nobody voted for Kamala Harris, but it's just like, oh my god, it's just like it hurts my brain that it's like this is where I'm like, the election had to have been stolen because no sane person in the world would vote for uh dementia big guy Biden and cackling O'Hara over there. It's just like.
Yeah. What do you mean?
I
know, like.
Sorry, we spent a little bit too much time on this topic. It kind of deviated a little bit, but it's
A little
just
bit.
I just
It went all over, but yeah, just
take if you take anything away, pay attention to the people that you're voting for, and the ones that are in power now, and if they say that they're for your ideals, they're your representatives. If they all of a
right.
sudden,
You better hold their feet to the fire, because no one
yeah,
else will.
if they don't vote for the things that you think are what you voted them in for, or they're doing things, or they're kind of going against like what they said they would do, fuck them, vote them out. And don't ever forget what they do. Keep a record. If you had to write it down, write it down, but don't ever forget.
Right, just like 9/11, never forget.
Yeah.
All right. Any more on this topic?
No, I have nothing else to say.
All right. All right. On to the next topic, and of course, it's a topic on everyone's lips. Even uh, you know, to their detriment, because remember, there's still a war going on, and fucking dithering idiot that's trying to desperately, pull us into it. But we're gonna talk about this. um, yeah, the slap heard around the world. Will Smith, assaulting Chris Rock, and perpetuating black on black crime.
Here's the thing. Now, I've heard good arguments on both sides, whether this is real or fake.
Mm-hmm.
I could totally see if this is just like a stunt, because for one, nobody watches the Oscars anymore, and this could totally be a stunt, just to kind of like, oh, what? Will Smith slapped Chris Rock? Those are two popular guys I know. What happened? I gotta watch next year to see if there's any other craziness. Totally see that, and there's definitely evidence to that point, and that's very sad, because like you have to pull something that crazy just to get people to watch. Otherwise, because I'll be honest, like there was a time like where I did actually watch the Oscars, because I wanted to see the movie that I really liked, that was nominated. Like, did it win anything? Did it? And I was kind of curious.
Right, but this is how you know that they're so out of touch, because like, can you name any of the other movies for Best Picture, or even like for Best Actor? Like, what were the movies?
The last one that I do remember that I was like, that I felt that was deserving that won was
No,
Parasite.
but currently, like for like this past Oscars, could you name a
Like,
could
I
you name
know,
a sing could you name even okay, you might be able to name one, but okay, could you name at least three of the movies nominated for Best Picture, or even like in the category for like Best Actor?
Best Picture, yes. Best Actor, I don't know. I know Nightmare Alley was one. Belfast was another, and what was the other one? Shit, there was another one that I did have in my mind that I can't remember right now. 2020, because this is from last year, right? I know there was
More or less,
talk.
yeah. This
I
year's Oscar is about last year's movies,
I know there
and
was.
yeah, you can say you could chalk it up to like pandemic or whatever, lockdowns. But that's how you know that Hollywood has lost touch with everyday people, is because like they put up they elevate movies like Belfast, which again I'm not denigrating it. I'm not criticizing it. But like I didn't go watch it. Um,
I have seen
you
it,
know,
but I know I did I what I don't even remember it being in theaters. I went to the theaters last year. I never saw it.
yeah, well there you go. And then like and then you had like other movies.
It was
I
not
think
a
the other
movie.
one I think which got lambasted by Sam Elliott was Way of the Dog or whatever.
Oh, the Western, that's right. With
Yeah, that western with like
that was the one I was thinking of. Yeah,
yeah
that's
with
right.
Cumberbund.
Yeah.
But
It wasn't Kirsten Dunst in that one too.
I couldn't even tell you.
I think she was. I think she was in that
But
movie.
yeah, I mean, look like these movies, like no everyday working class person went to go see these movies.
I will say this: if I was going to choose, because I did see the list of movies that were being chosen, and I have seen like a number of them. If I was going to choose one that I felt was deserving, and and as much as I hate to say this, I would have to say Nightmare Alley, just, even though it's a remake, because it was really well done. I think Guillermo del Toro did a great job on that movie, and the fact,
But I
and
mean,
I
yeah, you're kind of proving my point because outside of like you, like cinephiles like you, or like smart sniffing elitists, like no one went to go see these movies, like the ones that are nominated at least.
But here's the thing: I don't even know if that was in theaters. That's the problem either.
Well, but even regardless, like even with a captive audience, like with like streaming services and whatnot, no, I guarantee you nobody saw these movies. At least, again, nobody working class or living paycheck to paycheck saw these movies.
I would say that definitely the last 2 years, and I'm not even gonna say I'm gonna even say this year. There's really not anything that people are seeing. The movies that people are going out to see are from last year, Spider-Man: No Way Home. Everyone saw that movie, despite like the worst pandemic ever, quote unquote.
Yeah,
Uh, this year, the Batman. That was another one. Everyone went to see that movie, me included. 2020, I, you could argue Black Widow. Like I went out to theaters to see that, but the movies that I wanted to see were like Minari. I didn't get to see that. Um, I still haven't seen it. I am gonna watch that movie. Um, last year there was the one that Eric talked about to us about that I've actually been seeing a lot about that movie. I just have not gotten the chance to sit down and watch it. Was Drive My Car, which I've heard is really good. Uh, and like Nightmare Alley, which I've talked about. I think I talked about it last week too, or a couple weeks ago. And that was a movie that like I watched the original, and then I even bought the original. That's how much I liked it. And then I watched the remake, which is also one I would definitely buy. That's how much I like the movie. But yeah, like that's. But I don't. I went through like the when I was seeing the advertisements. I went to like see, is it in theaters? Because I would have gone to see it, and no, it wasn't in theaters. And I think that's part of the problem too. Is like a lot of these movies aren't in theaters, and I don't think, to be honest, I don't think people are going to watch some of these more artsy films, or like more of the.
well, I mean, well, again, you're proving my point. I mean, yes, 'cause, like yeah, you can say pandemic, caused less people to go watch it, but then a lot of these movies like immediately went to like these streaming services. But I'm betting like they're still not gonna watch them.
Well,
If they have the okay in a world where like you can watch Belfast or you can watch Matrix, Resurrections. I mean, whatever you want. There, people are gonna go. People would probably rather watch Matrix, Matrix.
To be honest, I think they would be more disappointed by watching Matrix. But no, and don't get me wrong, visually, I'm like, I do want to see the Matrix movie, the new Matrix movie, but I would say that I've seen Belfast, and it's a good movie. It's and but let's go even back to like
But
2019.
yeah, but again, okay, but it doesn't really matter because we're getting off topic here because we're supposed to be talking about the slap. Um,
But
but
nobody.
but just really quickly though, I would again, but it just goes to show you how disconnected Hollywood is. Like they're no longer catering to their audience. They're catering to themselves, and so they come up with these like fart sniffer movies, like Way of the Dog or Belfast or whatever. And and again, like it only appeals to those the fart sniffers and cinephiles like yourself. Um,
Yeah, I'll agree with
but
that.
again, it's not as and then like and it's not as though it's like Belfast comes out and it gets like a lot of good word of mouth, and then people like go see it because of that word of mouth. It's like because like even like when even like a lot of these movies came out on streaming services, I'm betting I bet good money that no one was saying like, oh man, you gotta go see Way of the Dog, or oh you have to go see Belfast. Because otherwise because then like they would be like the studios they'd be crowing from the rooftops about like, oh, how well this did. Like the streaming services like HBO Max or whatever, they'd be going like, oh man, look at these numbers, look at like we got a billion views on this movie, and they'd be just crowing about it. But like I haven't heard shit about any of like these movies that were nominated.
Right. No, you're 1,000% correct. Even when you and I like we watched Parasite when that came out, I watched that in theaters,
Yeah,
and
same.
I've watched it several times since. But yeah, it won Best Picture, and I'm 100% agree that we had a disagreement about should it have won or not. But
Right.
you could argue that wasn't necessarily the best movie of the year. Like it's not like I thought it was the best movie, hands down that year, but not everyone went to go and watch it. It wasn't
Right,
like
but it had more buzz around it. It had more word of mouth buzz about it.
true, but it wasn't like it didn't make like 400 or 500, or $1 billion like some of these other movies that everyone went to go see. Was
Right,
it better?
but okay, but yeah, but my point is about like the cultural impact of these movies, uh, because I'm sure back like in the '70s, people, they didn't like they weren't maybe people weren't giving The Godfather its share until someone like a lot of buzz started coming out about it. Because
Well,
it's not one of like like it wasn't a western, or it wasn't a genre film, or it wasn't something with special effects.
well, the Godfather was the first like mainline gangster film that not only made money but was like, oh wow, this is because gangster films were a genre film that nobody cared about until The Godfather.
True. But again, it just comes
It's all
again because I can only read the tea leaves that are in front of me, and and none of the tea leaves are saying that that people were excited about these movies, or like that there was like some like cultural relevance about them.
like I said, no one's gonna care about Shape of Water, 50 years from now. It's just no
Oh
one.
my god, that was such a shitty fucking movie.
Fuck that movie.
But anyways, Will Smith smacked the shit out of Chris Rock.
Yeah,
Quoting Chris Rock here.
like I said,
Um,
I could totally see that it being absolutely fake. There's definitely evidence to that point, and if that's the case, it's very sad because it's just a ploy because the Oscars have been losing eyeballs for years. And okay, it's and that's not because of anyone else's fault but Hollywood. That's their fault. So it's like, oh, we got to do something crazy to, make up those eyeballs.
Yeah, I mean, so this is basically their Nipplegate.
Yeah,
for those of you who might be not old enough or who are too young.
2003, the Super Bowl with
2003, was it 2003?
Yeah, it was 2003 against
Right,
New England,
yeah.
the Carolina Panthers, and the
right. During the halftime show, it was like the first time that MTV produced, and the first and last time MTV produced the halftime show. But yeah, it had Justin Timberlake, Janet Jackson. I think there was another kind of big name performer.
Yeah, and the quote unquote wardrobe, quote unquote wardrobe malfunction. That definitely stage.
Exactly, and it's like there's no way, like the way like the hand moved across like Janet Jackson's breast, and like it's like he like grabbed onto that and yanked it off like with like a purpose. Like there's no ways around it.
Yeah, with all the fucking Velcro around that too. Whatever.
Yeah. It only came and the only thing that came off was like the cup that was supporting that breast.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this is like their Nipplegate, but it's like but yeah, whether you believe it or not, it happened, and it's really weird because like strange allies and all that. Jim Carrey came out recently or after this and like had like a pretty reasonable take on it, and which I was surprised because Jim Carrey's a fucking lunatic to me now.
Yeah. Here's the thing, and if this is real, this is also sad because as we know, Will Smith is
he's a cuck.
To be honest, why he hasn't left his wife for what she's done, I'll never understand. To be honest, like, and it's kind of like that. What's that dude's name? Like Jack Murphy, who is supposedly like has all these conservative values, but then enjoys like watching his wife get like fucked by other dudes. That's kind of like what I see like Will Smith.
Right, and I mean, yes, I'm not necessarily promoting divorce here, but the Bible does give conditions for divorce, and one of them is unfaithfulness, adultery. Of course, that you're only supposed to go there, if you attempted to work things out, with your spouse, and if you and if there can't be a reconciliation, then you can divorce. But you know, uh, I don't think that. I mean, I'm not questioning his salvation status, but I don't think Will Smith is a Christian. I don't think the Smith household can be called Christians.
I don't think it either.
And so if they do not, if they don't live under that statute, or then what they can do whatever they can do whatever they want. But well, I mean, not whatever they want, but in terms of this one instance, yeah, get a divorce. I mean, if your wife is making you out to be a fool, then fucking drop her ass. And it's not as though like they're staying together for the kids. They both have adult children. They're grown, and they're like both, and all their kids are more or less able to take care of themselves. So I don't know why they're staying together. It doesn't make any sense.
I really don't get it.
And it's like, and if you look at the, we don't see, the point where Will gets up, and we don't see the before time of when Will stands up. We don't see that angle, but prior to that, we see him laughing at that joke, and it's his wife that kind of rolls her eyes
because it's funny.
Because it's funny, because it's humorous, and someone who doesn't take themselves too seriously will be able to laugh at that joke. And it wasn't as though, he was doing like some sort of deep cut. It's like, oh, you got to, your haircut reminds me of G.I. Jane. Oh my God, so deep. You cut so deep.
That's where, like, to be honest, like, I think the I would almost say that the one that's insufferable in that relationship is probably Jada Pinkett, but it's and in a way, I think that maybe like Will in his own way is trying his best because I think he does. To be honest, for him to deal with all of that bullshit, he must really love his wife a lot to go through all that. Because honestly, like if in a normal case, you wouldn't you wouldn't deal with all this. You would have divorced, like, okay, you had like you slept with like one other dude. Oh, second dude, like fuck that, I'm gone. It's like I thought we worked through this. And unless like maybe he's having some sort of something on the side too with other people, but there has to be something where like maybe he really I think he maybe does really love his wife, and where maybe she doesn't respect him the way that he does her. And yeah, he thought it was a funny joke, but then kind of like looked around, looked at his wife, and it's like, oh, she's pissed. So, yeah, she's fucking other dudes, but I gotta, and I'm kind of embarrassed as a man, but I'm gonna stand up for the one thing that I can do as a man. I'm gonna stand up and do what I gotta do. And like this fucking Jack in the Box up on the stage is talking shit about my wife. Well, you know what? I can smack the shit out of him. It's like maybe that's what's going on. I don't know.
Well, see, this is where we're going to disagree, because even if they're not under the banner of like Christian, like even just as a man, like you have to keep your wife in check. And like I don't care if like, because that's how fucking men like lose their lives, because some their bitches get out of pocket, and they make them to go do something because they're upset.
No, Andy. I'm actually not. I'm just my thing was speculation. It's just like trying to get into Will Smith's head.
Right.
I'm not
But I
saying
mean, but okay, but see, this is where I'm going to point. This is where I'm going to say, like, there's no point in trying to get into Will Smith's head, because he's vacated. He's an evacuated person. All right.
no.
He does not make any decisions himself. He does not act in of his own volition of anything. All right. Because like if the pictures and the video from the after party are any indication, he's completely evacuated. He does not know how to be a normal human being anymore. Because how do you, after going up there crying, saying like, oh, love makes you do crazy things and blah blah blah, and making your like pseudo apology, then go out and yuck it up with with people at a party, and like and sing your songs from your glory days, and like nothing happened. That's Will Smith is an evacuated person.
Well,
He,
and
he has
honest,
no agency.
and Dave Chappelle talked about stuff like this, way back, when on the Actor Studio, where he talked about how there's a lot of these people that are in Hollywood who they end up all of a sudden they look like they have this like great normal life, and all of a sudden they something fucking crazy happens to them, and like, oh, they're crazy, they're acting out, they're doing this and that. It's like, well, no, it's like their life wasn't that good actually. And the reaction is like that they're crazy. It's like, no, this this arena of Hollywood is not a good place. There's a lot of bad things happening here, and the people that live in it, for the most part, have a hard time surviving through it and are fucked up. And
Well, yeah,
and
granted,
when they
but yeah, I think like, but specifically Will Smith, I think is an evacuated person. Like
well,
he legitimately has like no agency. Um,
Well,
and it's not that he's like so like insulated or like cut off from like everyday people, but just like there's nothing there of himself anymore. You know, Will Smith is a brand. You know, just like Beyonce is a brand, and like and for those of you who this might surprise you, Beyonce the brand is owned by somebody else.
yep.
Like it's owned by like some like Swedish family. But yeah, they own the brand Beyonce.
What?
Yeah, no, yeah, what is it?
I
Yeah,
forget.
on a stream with Owen Benjamin, he broke it down. He like found like this family like in Swiss, like the Hellsberg or family or something. Uh,
Some Jewish guy.
no. That's the surprising thing about it too. I was surprised too. But he found
Like,
all the information. Like this house, like yeah, that I call like the Hausbergs or whatever. They're from like Sweden, and like they own the internet. Crazy enough as it is, like they own the internet. Like they own Sony Ericsson, the technology company. Like, but yeah, they like own the internet too, supposedly. They wanted like yeah, they own Krispy Kreme. They own like a lot of brands that you would recognize. But like one of them was like Beyonce. It's like what? How do you own a brand? It's like but like the whole like persona that is Beyonce, they own that shit.
yeah.
So ostensibly they own her. But anyways, yeah, Will Smith is completely evacuated. It's not as though like he's not like Michael Jackson famous where it's like he's like completely cut off and he can't have normal like relationships or whatever. He's just like there's nothing there anymore. He's giving it all up for the fame.
That's what. But yeah, like you said, I 100% agree with you. But I'm saying is that like that didn't just happen overnight. Like that
No, yeah, okay, yes, this is where we can come back and
like
agree.
that and that's where like that's where it's like Hollywood is not a good place. It destroys people. Even back even back to like our great actors that we love that we talk about like a Steve McQueen or Humphrey Bogart or um, Rita Hayworth. Hollywood destroyed those people,
Hmm.
and a lot of times especially like with like someone like Rita Hayworth, you know she was turned kind of crazy. Judy Garland is another one. That it
Hmm.
drove her insane.
Hmm.
With all the shit that happened to her. Uh, and the casting couch is not like something that happened in like 2010 with Harvey Weinstein. That had been
Right,
happening
yeah,
like
like
back
yeah.
in the 1930s.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
yeah, the casting couch, dude. There's always been a casting couch.
as soon as
Uh,
there's film, there's gonna
let's not get it twisted. Like even
yeah.
like it even goes back to the those
Huh?
ancient times. When they're picking temple priestesses.
Yeah,
That was a fucking casting couch too.
yeah, but as far as Hollywood goes, like as soon as film started, there was a casting couch.
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah, like, yeah.
Um,
But the concept of the casting couch is ancient. You know.
yeah,
Um,
the idea, but
But
the idea,
yeah, but the other thing about this slap is like what it's reinforcing, and that is if there's someone that says something that you don't like, you can retaliate with physical force, and that's dangerous. I mean,
yeah,
just a week ago or so, we had that example of those Yale law students shouting down two speakers talking about why free speech is important or whatever. Um, and we're lucky that they only started shouting or they only were like interrupting, which again isn't right either. But imagine if they felt emboldened enough to go and attack the speakers. You know,
they were a drink away from that happening.
yeah. I mean, maybe the Kool Aid, but yeah, like just imagine like if those again like these are fucking Yale law students. It's not as though these are undergrads. I mean undergrads you might be able to understand or even forgive their youthful vigor, But
Yeah.
these are fucking people who are gonna who might eventually sit on the Supreme Court potentially.
Bingo.
And like they don't they don't even value the principle of free speech, and like they don't even understand like what they're doing, just shouting down these preventing people from speaking as something dangerous.
They need to have a good cry.
Yeah, or a good beating. I don't know.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. It's like there wasn't there like when Biden made his decision, like I'm gonna my Supreme Court nominee. It's like it's gonna be the first black black woman on the Supreme Court. It's like, well, you've already eliminated you've essentially made an affirmative action.
Well, yeah, 50% because the woman thing, but then also what is it? 13% are of the population is black. Have that. That's like 7% of the black population.
Yeah, and first of all, the guy was a liberal, and the guy was saying it's like and he was even choosing another person who was already kind of liberal, but not like a crazy liberal, and he got raked over the coals for it, and like all hit, and this was I don't know if it was Yale or Harvard, but like they were all his the law students are like, oh man, it's the worst thing. Like we need a place to go cry and like just mourn. It's like, why?
Oh, are you talking about Kavanaugh?
No, this was just a few weeks ago when Joe Biden said that he was going to choose his when he was up to make his Supreme Court justice pick, and that it was going to be a black woman. And there was some professor like at Harvard or Yale or something
professor.
Okay. That was saying that like, oh, we need it's like you've already like you're eliminating all these like other good picks that like are, and he chose like he had like 2 or 3 other women that like he that he was saying like these would be better picks than a black woman, and they were all minority women, because he's also a leftist, but it's just like. It's like the guy ended up, I think if he didn't get fired, he was almost fired for just making those statements. It's like, what the fuck? Yeah, it's like, this is how crazy these people are.
Yeah, I'm not too familiar with that
dude's name. I had to go back and like look.
Yeah. I mean, examples of this are like happening so often. It's kind of hard to keep track, and
I hear so many fucking stories like this.
Exactly. So
college student has to go cry in the corner.
But anyways, it's one thing, to use the heckler's veto, but it's another thing to go and and smack the jester.
Yeah, exactly.
So that and like these people who are running cover for Will Smith is just like I don't understand. I can't understand it. It's
but like you said, Jim Carrey, for a rare measured response by him, I'm like, wow, I couldn't believe it, because I actually, to be honest, I agreed with him.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. Me too. That's why I'm like, it's like so surprising. But then I'm sure by tomorrow I'll be back to hating his guts.
Yeah, but like I was like,
but in this one moment we can agree, and I think that's a beautiful thing.
We are simpatico, like, as of today.
Right. For right now, in this one instance, we are simpatico.
As much and I hate to say, because I love Jim Carrey. I love his movies. I Liar Liar, The Truman Show,
Dumb and Dumber, The Mask,
these
Ace Ventura.
These are all movies that I love, and I think Dumb and Dumber. I think he's great. God, Dumb and Dumber with him and Jeff Daniels, who are like the craziest leftists on the planet. Mm-hmm. But it's still a fucking great movie, and at the same time, they're their personal views are so. I mean, Jeff Daniels and Jim Carrey are crazy people.
Mm-hmm.
They are unhinged, crazy people that are allowed to live in real life for some reason. But in this one instance, I can say like, hey, Jim Carrey and I kind of agree. It's not okay to just go up on stage and just hit somebody.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, and it's so funny because the left has been. I mean, at least like for the last like 5 years, they've been trying to equate speech with violence. But
Yeah.
now like they're past that point. It's like no, like the only way to respond to speech is violence.
Exactly. It's not like Chris Rock is like grabbing like kids' cocks, every day, and it's like, and it's like Will Smith's like, this is fucking bullshit. Stop touching kids, and like he smacked them. I'd be okay with it. But
I mean, I'd be more tolerable to that sort of thing.
yeah, but he made a stupid joke about his wife that was, to be honest, was kind of funny because she does look like
and it's it's funny because like they're saying like because she has alopecia. It's just like
oh
yeah,
please.
but she doesn't have cancer, and it's not as though he was making fun like let's say like she did have let's say that she did have cancer. It's not as though he was making fun of the cancer. All right.
It's like, you're gonna die soon.
Right, exactly, and from what I hear, like the alopecia was just like it wasn't even like that bad. It was like one line in her head, and then she just decided to shave her head. It wasn't like as though like there were like huge like swatches of her hair that were being that was falling out. It was like like literally like a line in her head that wasn't growing hair anymore, and like she probably could have easily like done a comb over or got extensions to like hide that, but she went who's that representative? She's part of the squad, but like lesser known. Ayanna Pressley.
Yeah, Ayanna Pressley. Yeah, thank you.
Ayanna Pressley. But yeah, but now like they're trying to make like alopecia like the new cancer. But from if what I heard is accurate, it's not that surprising because what is it? Pfizer paid for the Oscars this year. But also they're coming out with a new drug to treat alopecia.
Oh wow, amazing!
Yeah, I mean this is what I heard. I haven't confirmed it myself, but if this is true, then this whole hullabaloo. Because like what was it like? I think like I think like the hashtag alopecia was like trending too a little bit. So it's like,
oh god. Can I just kill myself now?
No, because then you won't go to heaven, and that'll make me sad.
Oh, okay. I fucking hate the world sometimes. It's just like it's so. Of course, Pfizer was all in on this. Like, of course they were, advertising for the Oscars, and of course,
of course nobody. I mean, it was Hollywood, but of course nobody in Hollywood, stood up against like medical tyranny and like forced jabs.
Of course.
But also, like it's kind of not. Well, hold on, let me gather my thoughts here for a second. It's not all too surprising, why Jada might actually have beef with Chris Rock, because I remember like the previous year, because people forget, but Jada was the originator of like the whole like Oscar so white thing.
Yep, I remember that.
Because interestingly enough, like one of the few times that she publicly backed her husband was like because he didn't get nominated for like that football movie that he was in.
I remember that.
Yeah, it's like she's like saying, "Oh, look, like there's no people of color nominated for best actor."
First of all, a movie that nobody fucking watched.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, because they're out of touch. But that year, Chris Rock hosted, and he made a joke at her expense then too, because he was like saying how like I don't know why Jada's upset. It's the same reason. I haven't been in Rihanna's panties. I wasn't invited.
Oh,
Exactly.
oh my god! Oh Jesus! Oh that! Oh my god! I totally forgot about that because every fucking person's been in Jada's pants. Oh my god! Oh, that's
Well,
so. I forgot about that.
yeah. Well, I mean, I think also it was like kind of a dig. Like it's like the reason why like your husband didn't get it because he wasn't nominated.
It,
Um,
it just.
but yeah, like Chris Rock, if not earlier, like that was when he got on to Jada's shit list.
Yeah. And you know what? Like, first of all, funny joke, and once again, this past Sunday, funny ass joke,
Mm-hmm.
but because he's telling the truth, and she can't handle it because she's a an insufferable bitch.
Yeah. Again, she's entitled, and like it's hilarious because she's only elevated because of her husband. Like yeah, okay, she was working at the same time as Will, but Will, like, he became a superstar, and like she hopped onto that wagon real fast.
Oh yeah.
And she couldn't put that last name Smith, after her maiden name fast enough.
Yeah, but no one's going to Jada Pinkett movies. I'll just say that.
Exactly. Like I mean I really can't even, like, except for like a few, like, where she was like the supporting role or whatever. I can't even think of like a movie where she like starred in. And I know, yeah, she had that success with like that TV show or whatever. But again, like gun to my head, I couldn't even name like 5 Jada movies or shows that she's been on.
Nope, I can't think of any. I can easily do that for Will Smith.
Yeah, I can do that for Will Smith.
and without even trying.
Yeah, I wouldn't even have to like stop. Independence Day, Men in Black, 7 Pounds.
His 5 worst movies. That,
Yeah, yeah.
name her before I can name Jada Pinkett's best movie.
Right. Yeah.
Bagger Vance.
Bagger. Oh my, dude, it's been so long since I can't even remember that movie.
It's
It's been
awful.
so long. Oh my god. Yeah, but like, yeah, it's like he played like the magical minority. I remember that. Yeah, he played the magical minority.
Wild Wild West. Although that's
Oh
a
yeah.
bad movie.
Yeah.
Some people say 7 Pounds, but I actually kind of like that movie.
Yeah, I mean, it's not my favorite, and like, let's be honest, it wasn't the best. And of course, and it was
Not a good movie, but
no,
it's likable. It's enjoyable.
yeah, and it's total Oscar bait.
Oh, of course it is.
It was total Oscar bait. So whatever. But yeah, you know, yeah. I don't know why he's still with that woman. He because of her, he ruined his career.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, as much of a downturn as his career has faced recently, this has completely ruined him.
He was a guy that was constantly every summer was in a blockbuster big blockbuster hit. Like he was making his movies were consistently making like 300 $400 million.
Right.
And what has he done in the last 10 years? Can you I mean his most recent film, King Richard, sure, that's probably gonna, that was definitely up there as far as like, a potential, big movie, but that's not gonna make a. Maybe that's gonna make $150 million. Maybe.
Yeah, that's not gonna be Independence Day money. That's not gonna make Independence Day
No,
money.
and arguably, and I haven't seen King Richard, but I imagine King Richard is probably a better movie than Independence Day. Uh, but yeah, no one's going to fucking see that movie.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Uh,
Oh, we got a message. Dark Avenger. Man, y'all best watch out. Will Smith gonna come slap y'all too.
I know he wants to talk about Fist of Fury. I already know about that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, is there anything else that you want to add
I,
to?
just I just felt like it blew up my Twitter on Sunday, and I just felt like it was kind of interesting to maybe talk about too.
Mm-hmm.
I think we brought our own flavor to it,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, that's all I had.
Yeah,
That's all.
I mean, yeah. The one thing I'll add is like when I first heard about it, I immediately went to this is fake, or this was staged. Um, I've come to a more agnostic position on it.
I could say it could be both ways. I could totally see it being fake, and that's sad.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's real, it's also kind of sad.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, again, I come to an agnostic point about it, but
And I'm totally where you're at.
yeah, and so yeah, so I'm just waiting for more information.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Uh,
Um.
Lee in our
Okay.
movie review.
Okay. Oh well, I will. I mean, do you want to forego the Be Water
No,
thing?
let's talk about Beat Water because that's gonna float into the movie review
Okay.
anyways.
All right, for sure. Um. All right. Well, like we said, kind of waiting for the perfect moment, as it were, to discuss this movie, and yeah, no better time than when just when we decide to review Fist of Fury. Um, for those of you unaware, Be Water is documentary about Bruce Lee. Kind of talking about his life, his philosophy, his career. This it came out in 2020 through ESPN's 30 for 30 series, and I enjoyed it overall. Uh, um, it
Yeah,
was a little bit annoying.
it was interesting.
Yeah, I was getting annoyed initially towards the beginning because of all of like again kind of like how I mentioned earlier about like that that special word that that kind of outs you as out as like being like a non-Jew or whatever. Um, but like all of like the buzzwords like like systematic rate systematic and and just that kind of like that progressive lens or like the
Yeah.
way that they're applying that progressive tinge to Bruce's career. It was so funny because like they what really annoyed me was like they're trying to paint uh, Bruce Lee as like some kind of victim, but
No,
in all of his actions, it just showed the contrary. Like Bruce Lee wasn't a victim.
it,
He
because yeah, you're right. Because all the narration behind it was like, oh, he's this terrible victim, whatever. But then you actually watch him, like the clips that they showed of like his interviews. He was not a fucking victim.
no exactly, and I mean like what was it? Like when he like one specific example that stuck out to me was when he was on the Green Hornet, and
Yep.
he was like saying like he was taking an acting he had an acting coach, but he had no lines delivered, and so he wrote a letter saying, hey, and he wasn't like it wasn't an ego thing. He just said like, hey, I want this show to be great, and and I and I think that it be the show could be made better if if Kato got some development, and
Yeah, and he was
and
right.
yeah, and he was right, and it did, and it helped the show.
Because that's when the show actually got good. Is like when Kato had lines.
Exactly.
Because that's actually a show that I did enjoy like watching on like I don't know if you remember this, but like back in going back to the 90s. Obviously, I didn't grow up when the show was on, but back in the 90s they would show like reruns of this. I don't remember if it was like on like Nick at Night or like whatever, but like yeah, I remember like watching like reruns of Green Hornet, and the show was good like when it was okay before, but like when Kato actually had lines and like was a character, it was like, oh, this is much better.
Yeah, exactly.
And so like that's not a victim thing. It's not like I need to have lines because this is racist that the Asian guy doesn't have lines. Like no, he didn't care about that. He cared about the show being good, and like that he was yeah. Did he want more screen time? Absolutely. But like it's kind of like he understood like it wasn't about just him. It was about the show in its entirety. Like, hey, I think we can make this show better. We could make this, if I had like more lines and I could do this, I think things would be better. And he was right.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, so I was getting so annoyed because it was like this is such a like because I've seen other Bruce Lee documentaries, and I think a really good one like the History Channel did, and this was before like all the woke crap started popping off, and it was great because yeah, they talked about like the struggles of Asian representation in Hollywood or whatever. What was that?
Yeah. Which we've talked about quite a bit.
Right, which we talked about quite a bit, and like yeah, they talked about that kind of stuff, but like they demonstrated that Bruce had a drive within him to make it happen for him. Not that like he was automatically supposed to have recognition or success or representation, or Asian representation should have been just like automatic.
Yeah. And it's kind of funny because I pair when I think of like big like Asian actors, there's two guys. We had especially like around this era we had Toshiro Mifune, who had not really broken out in America, but the guy is definitely an A-list actor, and you and I have talked about that ad nauseum.
Yeah.
And Bruce Lee was a guy who he was from Hong Kong, but like he had moved to America and had started to he had acted in Hong Kong well before he moved to America. He was a child actor,
Right.
and
Right, and here's the funny thing, because like yeah, they played up like the whole like immigrant story thing, but Bruce Lee was from a very well-to-do family. Like what is it? His brother even said like yeah, we had like maybe like two maids.
Yeah, they were a big fucking deal in Hong Kong.
Yeah, I mean, but it's like the idea like
the only reason he moved to America is because he was getting in too much fucking trouble. And his
he was the definition of what was it? What was it something delinquent?
Juvenile delinquent.
Juvenile delinquent. There you go. That's what it was.
Yeah, that's the only reason he moved to America. Otherwise, he probably would have continued acting over in Hong Kong.
Exactly.
It's just
right. But like yeah, but like the way they painted him out to be like he like was always like struggling, from the bottom or whatever. It's like
it's bullshit.
That's fucking ridiculous, right? Like why would you like because they started off with like him like coming to America and struggling and taking on all these jobs and not having like 2 pennies to rub together for him, but it's like that's like wholly disingenuous because like because he comes like arguably Bruce Lee comes from privilege.
Yeah.
And it's like, and not even, and if you want to take it like even like in their terms, he comes from racial privilege too, because he's part like German. Like his mom was like half Chinese, half German.
Yeah, like I said, Jackie Chan suffered more than Bruce Lee ever did.
Yeah, that's right. It was funny because when I was watching Fist of Fury, I was actually trying to look for Jackie Chan, because I know they worked together. And I was just wondering if it was like as early as this movie that they worked together, or was it only in what was that one movie for sure he was in? Was it Enter the Dragon?
Yeah, I believe it was Enter the Dragon was the only movie that they worked together. I don't remember if he was in Fist of Fury 2 as well.
Okay. Yeah, because I was like, during like that's because I remember because I've seen other documentaries. I think and even the one about Jackie Chan, he talked about that time that he like Bruce Lee like really like clocked him during a take, and it kind of looked like the scene that dojo scene in Fist and Fury, but
it could have been.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. We just don't know because it's not like it's not super visible. Only like the super hardcore people who like stop everything frame by frame would be able to fucking tell.
Right.
And I don't have the fucking time for that. That's for damn sure.
Right.
If Jackie Chan doesn't say he's in that film, honestly, like I don't give a shit.
Right.
I don't care that much.
Right.
But
the Be Water. Yeah, it's just I was getting really annoyed by just like this like disingenuous like portrayal of him as this person like who was always like kind of on the back foot, but it's like dude, he comes from privilege. His Chinese opera family, well to do, had 2 maids. That's not somebody who like was who comes from like meager background.
Here's the thing that I thought about it. First of all, Bruce Lee would never have said anything like that, and we see that based off the interviews that he's giving.
Mm-hmm.
And despite all the evidence for there's all this racism, blah 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 blah, and that agenda that the documentary is trying to push, all the evidence that's being shown is the exact fucking opposite.
Yeah, exactly to the contrary of what they're trying to say. It's like
yeah,
and like you could like it really sucked that Warner Brothers screwed Bruce out of Kung Fu. And like I could imagine him like because I believe his daughter was saying like, oh yeah, he was like very depressed over that and things like that. And I could imagine him like feeling very betrayed for like he basically wrote the series for them and then they stabbed him in the back. But like I don't think like that would have had him like down for very long.
And and you're right. That's exactly the case. I do remember that because I do because that was a series I used to watch, and I remember I forget when that series came out, but I was probably watching the reruns, and I do remember like because my mom was she watched like a lot of this stuff. I think because secretly I think my mom does like kung fu movies and stuff like that. I don't know. But I remember like she loved that show. It's like, this would have been so much. I remember her saying like this would have been much better with like Bruce Lee, the guy that actually created the show.
Yeah.
It's like, and and as much as I love David Carradine, despite his extracurricular activities, and I loved his dad in movies, but this was Bruce Lee's show. That was his character. That was his show that he created, and it should have been him in that show. It's similar to like all the roles that Toshiro Mifune turned down that should have made him a superstar in America. This would have been the show that would have turned Bruce Lee into a superstar, and it was stolen from him.
Yeah, or
And
they made him like a household name in America.
yes, and that's really sad. And now he became a cult name in a lot of ways, but I really would have liked to have seen like what would have happened had they given him the credit and like made him the star of the show that he created. I think that would have been amazing. Because Bruce Lee is he's no slouch as an actor. He's a really good actor. And with more practice would have become, I think, one of the greats. Because we didn't really get to see Bruce Lee.
Right. I mean, because he died so young. He died at 32.
Yeah. I mean, he was a child actor. He was pretty good there. We only got, I think, 4 theatrical films of him, and obviously those were Hong Kong films, so it wasn't like super high budget or anything like that.
Yeah, Big Boss, Fist of Fury, of course.
Enter the Dragon.
Enter the Dragon, and then what's the 4th one?
And I think the last one he didn't even complete because
Game of Death.
Game of Death, yeah, he didn't even complete that because he died.
Right.
But yeah, that's the. So yeah, that's actually like the one legitimate thing where I'm like, yeah, that's fucked up. That actually did happen, and yeah, it did hurt him a lot. And that's like where he kind of like similar to like Jackie Chan, who was pissed off with like how he got treated in America with like some of these. Hey, you have like 5 days to like put the stunt together. Like I can't do it in 5 days. It takes months to create these stunts. Whereas like, oh well, thanks Bruce, you made it this like awesome show. We're gonna take that from you. Thank you for selling it to us, and you're not gonna be the star, and you're not gonna be involved in any way. But thanks, that's awesome. Yeah, I'd be fucking pissed off too, as you should be.
Exactly. But I mean, I mean, from our perspective, I could totally relate. Not to give too many specifics, but there was a time when like some of my work was stolen from me. Not as and it's not as though like overtly, but like someone took one of my images and like modified it a little bit, and then not not like tag that person, but like hashtag that another artist's name.
Oh, fuck that.
Which ostensibly gives credit to that artist.
Yeah.
On Instagram, and so so I I mean, not to the same extent as Bruce or Jackie, but like from an artist perspective, I totally understand that feeling of like being robbed the credit that of the work that you produce.
It just it's bullshit, and of course you'd be angry, and kind of like what Jackie Chan did, like before he created Police Story. He went back. It's kind of like he did what he took his licks in America, was pissed off, rightfully so, went back to Hong Kong, ended up making Police Story, which was amazing, and became the Jackie Chan that we all know now, and is given a lot more leeway. And it's like, hey, Jackie, you do what you do. You take the time you need. Here's the budget. Go for it. And I think Bruce Lee, he was kind of like he never got the chance to do to come back to America, which I think he probably eventually would have done. But he went to Hong Kong, started making the films that were that we all remember him from, and unfortunately he passed away before he could maybe come back to America and make it big again. But I think that was definitely the path that Jackie Chan took. He was he had this path in like China and Hong Kong, and got involved, to be able to do some things in America, which didn't quite work out to his liking,
Mhm.
and moved back to Hong Kong and reinvented himself and like kind of through anger and made something of himself and ended up coming back to America with a lot of power. And I think had Bruce Lee lived, that would have happened again. I think he would have been the first to do it. And Jackie Chan just kind of like, fulfilled in his own way. And, 'cause, like, he's not Bruce Lee, he's Jackie Chan. But he did like what I think Bruce Lee was attempting to do.
Right, and I think yeah, the what was it? The lesson that they didn't learn with Jackie Chan was um, to allow Jackie Chan to be Jackie Chan, just like you know, with the example that they gave in Be Water, all this, all the scenes about philosophy or kind of like or technique within martial arts, that was all due to Bruce's input and like his demands. Like, I don't want to make like this mindless, uh, kung fu movie. I want there to be depth, and and like the reason why Enter the Dragon works so well, and
Yeah.
why ostensibly, why he nailed that, that initial like screen test is because he was being himself.
Yeah.
And so, that's the lesson that Hollywood didn't learn about, or didn't take from Bruce Lee and apply it to Jackie Chan. It's like just let Jackie Chan be Jackie Chan because they thought like the big tough macho guy was that ripped, shredded, Bruce Lee, being the tough guy. That's what made him successful, and they try to
Yeah.
apply that to Jackie Chan.
Yeah, they tried to do that in Hong Kong too, and it's not quite. It's like it's not right either because Jackie Chan is a whole different style of guy,
Exactly.
and he's more of a comedian than Bruce Lee ever was. Bruce Lee
Mm-hmm.
is a serious action actor, whereas Jackie Chan is like more of like, yeah, he's an action guy, but he's having fun at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
There's some goofiness to like what he does.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, yeah, yeah, just even, you know, after all these years, like the impact of Bruce Lee is immeasurable. I mean, even in like in even for me, like when I do a Cantonese accent, that's inspired by the way Bruce Lee talked.
And I sure that there's like a lot of like Street Fighter 2 or Super Street Fighter 2 fans who definitely use Fei Long because they
Hmm.
love Lee.
Exactly. I mean, if you don't see the comparison to Bruce Lee, then you're obviously brown.
Yeah,
You're obviously blind.
yeah, exactly. It's totally Bruce Lee. Of course it
Hmm.
is.
Uh, but yeah. Anything else you want to add? Or?
I mean, overall, I think the documentary is good.
Hmm.
Despite like the agenda it definitely has behind it, the actual truth that it cannot like it can't stuff behind that agenda shows a
Hmm.
completely different story, and it shows how awesome you know I know a lot of people talk shit now, like they're like, oh, oh, Bruce Lee is like one of the strongest fighters, and like yeah, no one's saying that like he's the best fighter in the world. That's not what he was trying to do. It's called martial arts for a reason. Like he was doing more of like he was an artist.
Hmm.
He was a guy that like wanted to act, but he also wanted to show his philosophy and his training. And the guy he was a very capable, cool guy. And you know, we I think Bruce Lee really did change a lot for not only like Asian cinema, but like cinema in general. Because like when you look at a lot of these films that deal with like like action and like martial arts, Bruce Lee definitely impacted a lot of those. You look at
Right.
stuff
Yeah. I mean, even you're right. Sorry.
Kill Bill, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Well, yeah. I mean, like even in comedies and stuff, when they do kind of like these spoofy kind of martial arts fights, that's thanks to Bruce Lee. Because well, imagine if they didn't, what would they have put in, like if there wasn't like if Bruce Lee didn't make martial arts cool, like especially like Eastern martial arts cool, what would they have put in there? Would they have put like would they have done like old timey boxing, and like done like fisticuffs or whatever?
Yeah, we owe a lot to like guys like Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan, for the type of like martial arts movies that we do have in America.
Hmm. Yeah, and also like and also the work ethic too. You know,
Yeah,
we should.
you don't just like show up one day and like do all this shit. Like this takes months and months and months and months of training.
But then but also like the dedication, like his career didn't just pop up overnight. It took years for him to get to where he ended up being.
Yeah,
And and he didn't like he wasn't passive. He made moves, and he wasn't the model minority. When he especially if you're passionate about something, you speak up, and if you feel and like if you know that you can make a difference, like and improve something, then then you speak up. The same way that Bruce did for like his part in Green Hornet.
yeah. Well, and
You know.
I think that also because I don't think a lot of people realize that the guy was not like some rookie actor when when he was in Green Hornet. He had been acting his entire fucking life.
Right.
He'd
Yeah.
been
Exactly. Yeah,
he'd been
and exactly, but that didn't give him like a sense of entitlement, though. You know.
No, you're right. I'm not, but I'm just saying that like a lot of people don't realize that like the guy didn't just like I said, it took years.
Mm,
He'd been acting since he was like 9 or 10. Like he was super young when he started acting, and so he's not some like rookie that just like got the casting call for Green Hornet like one day because he's like Asian, had like some super cool like kick moves. You know he had he had put a lot of work in way before that.
exactly. All right. Okay. Let's get into our movie review, and we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, yeah, let's
Okay.
do that.
All right. Let me hit everybody with the synopsis, and we'll get going. Just to remind y'all, tonight's movie review is Fist of Fury, starring Bruce Lee. Returning to Shanghai to marry his fiancée, Chen Zhen, a student of renowned martial arts teacher Hua Yonjia, discovers his Sifu has died. During the funeral, members of a local Japanese dojo show up and insult the Chinese students. The bullying continues with Chen fighting back, but when he discovers the truth that his teacher was poisoned on the orders of the dojo's master, he sets off on a doomed mission of revenge.
Yeah, this is we only really got 4 films of Bruce Lee, and I really wish we would have gotten to be able to see him really hone in his craft. But Fist of Fury is one of those films that this is one of those like cult classic legendary films that I think a lot of martial arts fans and Bruce Lee fans really love, and that's kind of like why I wanted to choose this one. It is, I think it's set like what in like the early like 1900s.
Something like that. I mean, the Japanese, like the setting is Shanghai, and they're like Japanese people. So, yeah, I want to say early 1900s, maybe like in the 20s or 30s.
Yeah, so this is set like right around like the time, like like the Sino-Japanese wars. So like Japan is like kind of like on the move. The Imperial Japan is kind of on the move, and kind of like what we dealt with in Ip Man. We kind of get like a lot of this. Like, there's a lot of Japanese people. There's a lot of racism towards like the Chinese,
Mm-hmm.
which Bruce Lee's character
Right.
hates.
Which just goes to show you, you don't have to be white to be racist.
What? No, dude. I've been told so differently in the media.
Yeah. I mean, yellow people can hate on yellow people. It's
Dude,
not.
you have no idea how much my wife hates Chinese.
Yeah, because they're garbage people. That's what it is. I'm
people.
just kidding.
I've never heard so much like anti-Chinese hate. From my, from my wife.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, she lived amongst them, right? So she knows firsthand.
She did live in China, so she knows.
She knows. I don't know about you, but I was desperately trying to find an original, Cantonese or like Mandarin version of this movie, but I couldn't.
I can't find it.
Yeah, I mean in the documentary Be Water, they did use original soundtrack
Yeah, I want
for
to know where they dug that up from. I would have loved.
seriously. I was like looking high and low for like, original soundtrack uh, or dialogue track for this movie, but I couldn't. But even still, like hearing like the dubbed, it felt very nostalgic because I kind of grew up on because I had older guy cousins who were like really into Bruce Lee and things like that, and like the only versions that they could get were the dubbed versions, and so I watched the dubbed version. So it was very yeah. So I felt very nostalgic for even the dubbed ones, and even I I was surprised at how good that the dubbed version that I watched
Not
was.
really terrible. I agree with that. It's not bad.
Yeah. So yeah, like
I did watch the regular dub version. I also watched the Riff Tracks version of the dub
of
version.
course you did.
Of course I did.
Of course you did. But yeah, it's just like yeah, I know dub gets like bad rap, and especially back then in the '70s or whatever. But there's something for me very nostalgic about watching the dub. Um, and again, like the dub wasn't terrible.
It's not
I still felt like I I think that they got the emotions right uh, for it.
the emotions are right. The Yeah, I felt like
Yeah, like even like the speech patterns, because like the what was like the bot like what like the bot like with the body language and the hand gestures, I thought it was really well done.
yeah, it was. You get like the Japanese guys that are like taunting like the Chinese.
Mm-hmm.
You got like kind of that like sarcastic like taunting vibe. You got the anger from like Bruce Lee, pretty down, pretty pat.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and so yeah, it doesn't. So really, the unfortunate thing is like I don't think there exists a Cantonese uh with the English subtitles. I don't know if that even exists at
Right.
all. So really all we have is the dubbed version. To
Mm-hmm.
be honest, I think the same thing with Drunken Master with Jackie Chan. Like, I don't think that there is a subtitled version of that, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it doesn't really take away from the greatness of those films, because for whatever reason at that time they seem to have gotten like the emotions of the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe the guys that were doing the English like dubbing, maybe they were Cantonese, or they at least understood Cantonese.
Yeah. although for the love interest girl, she's for some reason she sounded Australian.
Yeah. Yeah, she did.
Yeah, but okay, so it wasn't just me, but yeah, this is a really interesting movie because it's it seemed like it started off as this just like revenge kind of movie, but the way that Bruce Lee's character goes about that, it almost seems like a spy movie because he uses tactics like like disguise and surveillance and all that kind of stuff. Uh, so it wasn't just like this guy, this big ripped guy, or like I mean it was Bruce Lee, so he's not that big, but it's like not just like this like kind of strong man, but he was like using his brains too, and like infiltrating like the dojo and getting intel on the situation and like how many like students there were and the lay of the compound. Um, it was really smartly done.
Yeah, it's not just like I said, it's a spy revenge thriller in a lot of ways. Like,
Mm-hmm.
he's not just using his fists of fury, but he's using his brains of fury as well. Kind of lame.
Yeah, lame, but I'll allow it.
Yeah. There's not really like, anything like super deep about the film. Like, there's nothing like, really about like, oh, we're gonna go into like, some theories about the film or like, alternate casting about like, there's none of that. Like, when it comes to this,
Mm-hmm.
it is pretty straightforward. But when you think about like what you know this is one of the quintessential Bruce Lee films. Like, this is where he's really becoming his own.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, he's kicking a lot of ass. He's super cool. And we when we talked about a Police Story, we did talk about the idea of like like when it comes to the fight scenes, like people just kind of shifting around. We definitely see that in this. You know, Jackie Chan really changed the game when it came to the fight scenes
Yeah.
in action films. Um, but this is obviously like really one of the first films. I guess you could go back to like like 36 Shaolin Monk or Shaolin Master or whatever the fuck that movie's titled, and some like those like your early films that they talk about in the Jackie Chan documentary. But Bruce
Mm-hmm.
Lee is really like kind of the guy that we think about with these films. And yeah, we see kind of like the move. You definitely see the choreographed movement.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just a cinephile in me. Like, if I was just like a guy watching, it's like, oh, this is a lot of fucking cool action, awesome. I don't
Mm-hmm.
care, you know. But it's not like a super deep film, but like, yeah, the action's awesome. Despite it's, you definitely see the choreography in it.
Mm-hmm.
Bruce Lee is a badass. He's trying to, gain not only like revenge for his master, but he's doing it smartly. He's not just going in guns blazing. He's coming up with a plan. He's targeting like the key members, and then weakening that rival school that's involved in his master's killing.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's a good movie. Like you said, it's not a this is not Casablanca or Shutter Island. It's not like a masterpiece like that, but it's a great movie.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even though there was like there was a small hint of like talking about like real life politics. I mean, specifically for back then, like with the whole idea of like colonization and like like the British colonization and things like that.
Yeah,
Um,
there's definitely a lot of that, and like the Sino-Japanese like politics as well.
mm, but yeah, but it wasn't like overbearing, and it was just and interestingly enough, you could say that Bruce Lee's character is a national, like kind of like a nationalist. Um,
No, what? No, Andy, that's horrible. Press person that did not like, he was completely depressed by white people, and I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, well, yeah, because what was it? One of the things like the teacher, the Sifu, uh, was teaching them. It's like, oh, you have to be strong to fight for your people and for your country. So yeah, like that's blatantly a nationalistic talking point or principle. Um, the individual being strong so that they can defend their country. That's blatantly nationalistic kind of rhetoric. Uh, but I mean, I think I know as much as it was as much as it was unfair for Chinese people to be second class citizens in their own home, in their own country, in their own land, a la the British colonization. I'm sure they're a lot of people in Hong Kong are missing those British people right about now.
I don't know what you're talking about, Andy. British? Who are those people?
Yeah.
The Red China all the way.
Yeah. You slave now.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, Fist of Fury, not like I said, not a super deep film. There's not like like I said, there's not like a whole bunch of lore behind it. There's not like it's not something like I'm gonna break down scene by scene, like I would like Eyes Wide Shut or something like that. But I this is a film I really enjoy. It's not my favorite martial arts film. Um, I'll probably ask you about that before we end. What your favorite one of the month was. But I really enjoy this film. I think it's a very important film, and I think Bruce Lee. A lot of people are there's a growing movement of like kind of like knocking Bruce Lee, and like you said, I maybe for like oh he's just they try to make him like this like a super like legendary figure, like oh he's like the greatest martial artist that ever lived. It's like okay, I don't know about that, but do I think he's super important to like the film world? 1000%. Like he's super important, and he definitely like he not only like did he change film, but I think he inspired a bunch of people to move forward and do their own thing in film. And we definitely see like there are a lot of people that became big in film now that would not have become big had Bruce Lee never existed. We see that we've talked about Jackie Chan. Jackie Chan wouldn't exist without Bruce Lee. Jet Li wouldn't exist without Bruce Lee.
Donnie Yen wouldn't exist without
Donnie
Bruce Lee.
Yen definitely would not exist without Bruce Lee.
Well, maybe knocking isn't the word you were looking for, but there has been this kind of like coddling or even like deification, of Bruce Lee.
Yeah,
because there was that controversy about how he was portrayed in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
yeah.
But even in the documentary, what is it like? Some of like the people some of his friends were like saying like, oh yeah, Bruce, did kind of have that reputation of being kind of like that asshole or whatever. Um, but if it, but if if a man's legacy cannot stand to a bit of mockery, then it doesn't mean anything.
Exactly.
Like if Bruce Lee can't be like made fun of, even to like the slightest degree, like how he was in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, then
Which way.
What was that?
Which was hilarious, by the
Yeah,
way.
which is hilarious because there is that rumor where Bruce Lee was like, like he talked a lot and it's like, and like that scene where it's like, oh, my fists are, registered as lethal weapons. That means if I kill somebody, I go to jail. And it's like yeah, like that's everybody. It's called manslaughter.
Yeah.
Just kind of like it's kind of taking him down a peg.
And Terrence knows that. Do you know that guy watched every fucking martial arts film known to man?
Yeah, no, I mean exactly. You can't make a movie like Kill Bill and then diss Bruce Lee. Dude, like there's like tons of Bruce Lee iconography even in just in the first Kill Bill.
Literally, the bride wore the same fucking suit that like Bruce Lee did in Enter the Dragon
or Game of Death.
Game of Death. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Sorry, I mixed up my movies, but
understandable.
So
yeah, exactly. So like people giving, I mean, as shitty of a person that I think that Quentin Tarantino is personally, you can't make a movie like Kill Bill with all that iconography and callbacks to Bruce Lee, and then shit on him for, lightly ribbing Bruce Lee in his latest movie.
Who clearly loves Bruce Lee.
Exactly. And again, like if the man's legacy cannot withstand the slightest, ribbing, then it doesn't. Then the legacy doesn't mean anything. But yeah, that's all I got about.
That's all about Fist of Fury. It's like I said, it's a great film. I think everyone should watch it. Is it the greatest film of all time? No. Is it the greatest martial arts film of all time? No. But I do think it's very historically significant. I think everyone should watch it. Do I think it's good? Absolutely.
All right, let's give our rating and then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
You want to go first, or you want me to go first?
Why don't you go first, Andy?
All right. I'm feeling a 3 on this one.
I
mean, again, I'm not saying like this was garbage, but it wasn't like spectacular either.
Like I said, I think a 3 is a very fair assessment of the film. Like I said, it's historically significant.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good movie. It's not a bad movie. It's not just a bunch of people punching each other. There is a story behind it. It's a good story. Have there been other martial is it the I would say it's maybe not the best Jackie or Bruce Lee movie. It's definitely not the best martial arts movie. Definitely not the best martial arts movie that we watched this month. But it's still like this is a very significant movie that everyone should watch. So yeah, I think a 3 is acceptable.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm willing to give it like the half before its like historical significance.
Yeah, I would say 3 to 3.5. I think that's pretty fair.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's where I'm like, yeah, because like as much as I love Bruce Lee and I love like everything like down to like his work ethic and philosophy and all that kind of stuff, like but I as much as I love the man and and his body of work, I I just it wouldn't I can't justify myself giving it a 4 or above.
Of the movies that we watched this month, what was your favorite?
Well, I need a slight refresher.
Because we did Police Story, we did Man, we did The Sword of Doom, we did Fighter in the Wind, and then we did Fist of Fury.
a very visual person. I just I want to say Police Story, but also like with recency bias, I want to say the Ip Man.
Yeah.
Because I absolutely love Police Story. It's I remember watching it as a very young child. With my cousins and things like that. So I
Yeah.
have but Ip Man is like the fight scenes are so freaking epic.
Yeah. That's where like I'm torn too. Now I love the Sword of Doom. I think the Sword of Doom is actually I know you didn't like it as much as I did.
Uh-huh.
I think it's fucking great. But when it comes to just like just the straight up like fight scenes,
Mm-hmm.
Police Story and Ip Man, like nobody can fucking touch them.
Yeah.
And I have seen Police Story 2. I have not watched the other Police Story sequels, which I'm 1,000% gonna do pretty soon.
Mm-hmm.
But I have seen all the Ip Man movies, and let me tell you, the fight scenes don't get worse; they get better. And I would almost say that Ip Man 3 is the most heartbreaking film one of the most heartbreaking films I've ever seen.
I'll have to take your word for it. Yeah, because I've only watched up to Ip Man 2,
Dude,
which is just a Rocky 4 ripoff, but it's still good.
yeah, dude, it's it's so fucking good. Um, the other thing that like Ip Man 2 kind of rips off of is Sanshiro Sugata, one of Kurosawa's films.
Mm.
The second one, not the first one.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a all four films. They are very good. At least the action content alone is phenomenal.
Right.
And they're all on Netflix. Go ahead and watch them, guys. They're great. But yeah, it's like I said, it's a run and gun battle between Ip Man and Police Story for me. Police Story, I fucking love to death. That movie just because I know what Jackie Chan went through to make that film, and I am entertained every time I freaking watch that movie.
All right. Well, there you have it, folks. That's our review for Fist of Fury. Both Robert and I give this a 3.5. On certain days.
I'll give it a 3.5, just for the historical sake.
Okay. All right. By no means do we denigrate it. It's still an enjoyable film, and would recommend wholeheartedly. All right, folks, that'll bring us to the end of the stream tonight. I hope you had a good time. I had a good time. I know Rob always has a good time.
Oh, I had a great time. I needed this.
Don't forget to check out the library of other content that we have. The Circle of Jerks main podcast, other older episodes of Nocturnal Transmissions, of course, and Rob's gaming show, Up by Up Down. Don't forget to follow us on our various social media accounts, Twitter and Letterboxd at PodcastCOJ, and Instagram at Circle of Jerks Podcast. And with all that said, we thank you for joining us. Come back next week, and we'll do it all over again. Have a good night.